Death Valley is the lowest, hottest, and driest place in North America. It recorded 134 degrees Fahrenheit in 1913, the hottest temperature ever measured on Earth. And the lowest point in North America, at 282 feet below sea level, is only 84 miles from the highest mountain in the contiguous United States. Death Valley defies all logic. This isn't just another desert. This is a place where geology broke every rule and created something that shouldn't exist. Introduction. Get ready, because today you'll discover 35 incredible facts about Death Valley that will prove it's not just hot. It's one of the most extreme places on our planet. From salt formations that look like alien landscapes to rocks that mysteriously move across dry lake beds, Death Valley constantly challenges what we think is possible. Let's dive into the extreme geography that makes this place unlike anywhere else on Earth. Facts 35 to 31. Let's start at the lowest point. Badwater Basin sits 282 feet below sea level, making it the lowest point in North America. Standing on that salt-crusted floor, you're farther below the ocean's surface than a 25-story building is tall. But here's what makes Badwater Basin truly unique. It's an endorheic basin, meaning water flows in but never flows out to the ocean. Rain falls, floods rush down from surrounding mountains, and all that water gets trapped with nowhere to go except up into the air through evaporation. The salt flats at Badwater Basin cover nearly 200 square miles. That's an area larger than the entire city of Atlanta, covered in nothing but blindingly white salt crystals. These flats are among the largest protected salt pans in the world. When you walk across them, you're stepping on thousands of years of accumulated minerals that washed down from the mountains and got left behind when ancient lakes evaporated. Now here's something remarkable. In this brutal landscape where almost nothing survives, there's a tiny creature that calls this place home. The badwater snail is endemic to Death Valley, meaning it lives nowhere else on Earth. These tiny snails survive in small spring-fed pools near the edges of the salt flats, clinging to life in one of the planet's harshest environments. The salt formations at Badwater Basin are created through a continuous cycle of flooding and evaporation. Rain dissolves minerals from rocks across a drainage system spanning 9,000 square miles. Those minerals concentrate at the lowest point, and when water evaporates, it leaves behind layer upon layer of salt, creating the surreal white landscape we see today. Facts 30 to 26. Now let's talk about the heat. On July 10, 1913, at Furnace Creek in Death Valley, thermometers recorded 134 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 56.7 degrees Celsius, and it stands as the hottest reliably recorded air temperature ever measured on the surface of the Earth. For 5 consecutive days during that heat wave, temperatures reached 129 degrees or above. Imagine that. 5 days where the air temperature alone could cook food. But here's where it gets interesting. Some modern experts actually debate whether that 1913 record is accurate. They question the equipment and measurement methods. In August 2020, Death Valley hit 130 degrees Fahrenheit, a reading currently being evaluated for official verification. That August 2020 temperature ties with measurements from Mitribah, Kuwait, making them among the hottest reliably documented temperatures on Earth. Summer in Death Valley means regular temperatures exceeding 120 degrees. It's not a once-in-a-while occurrence. It's normal. During summer months, the valley routinely sees multiple days where the mercury climbs past that 120-degree mark, and those aren't even considered record-breaking events anymore. But air temperature tells only part of the story. The ground itself becomes a cooking surface. On July 15, 1972, ground temperature at Furnace Creek reached 201 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the only time any place on Earth has recorded a surface temperature above 200 degrees. At that temperature, you could quite literally fry an egg on the rocks. Facts 25 to 21. Here's where Death Valley's geography becomes truly mind-bending. Badwater Basin, at 282 feet below sea level, sits just 84.6 miles from Mount Whitney, which rises to 14,505 feet above sea level. That's an elevation difference of 14,787 feet in less than 85 miles. You can stand at the lowest point in the contiguous United States and see the highest point, all in the same view. From parts of Death Valley, you can actually see Mount Whitney on clear days. The snowy peak towers in the distance while you're standing on a salt flat in 120-degree heat. It's one of the most surreal visual contrasts on the planet. You're simultaneously looking at the floor and ceiling of the continental United States. But Death Valley has its own peaks too. Telescope Peak rises 11,043 feet above sea level in the Panamint Range on the western side of the valley. From the summit of Telescope Peak down to the floor of Badwater Basin, that's a vertical relief of 11,331 feet. This represents one of the steepest elevation gradients in North America, all contained within about 15 miles of horizontal distance. This dramatic elevation change creates distinct ecological zones. At Badwater Basin, nothing grows on the salt flats. Drive up to mid-elevations and you'll find creosote bush and mesquite. Climb to Telescope Peak and you'll encounter ancient bristlecone pines, some of the oldest living organisms on Earth. All of this happens in less than 20 miles. The viewing opportunity from Telescope Peak is unique. Hikers who make the strenuous trek to the summit can simultaneously see both the highest and lowest points in the contiguous United States. Mount Whitney to the west and Badwater Basin to the east create a visual representation of America's geographic extremes that exists nowhere else. Facts 20 to 16. Death Valley holds another extreme title: the driest place in North America. Average annual rainfall measures just 1.9 inches. To put that in perspective, the Sahara Desert receives about twice as much rain. Some areas in Death Valley, particularly Furnace Creek, often receive less than 1 inch of rain per entire year. The extreme dryness comes from the rain shadow effect. Moisture-laden air masses from the Pacific Ocean must cross 4 major mountain ranges before reaching Death Valley. As clouds rise over each range, they cool and drop their moisture. The Sierra Nevada mountains to the west and the Panamint Range create an incredibly effective barrier that keeps Death Valley perpetually parched. Here's the paradox. The driest place in North America is prone to dangerous flash floods. When storms do hit Death Valley, the rain falls so hard and fast that the bone-dry compacted soil can't absorb it. Water accumulates on the surface and rushes through canyons, picking up tremendous power and debris. These flash floods can be deadly, washing away cars and destroying roads. In August 2022, Death Valley experienced what meteorologists called a 1,000-year rainfall event. In just 3 hours, 1.46 inches of rain fell at Furnace Creek, representing 75% of the area's average annual rainfall. The resulting floods damaged buildings, buried vehicles in mud, and shut down the entire national park. The storms are so dangerous precisely because they're so rare. The ground is basically impermeable. Rain doesn't soak in, it runs off. Dry washes that haven't seen water in months can suddenly transform into raging torrents within minutes. More people have died from flood-related incidents than from heat in recent decades. Facts 15 to 11. Death Valley National Park is massive. It covers 3.4 million acres, which equals 5,270 square miles. That makes it larger than the entire state of Connecticut. This is the largest national park in the contiguous United States. The valley itself runs roughly 140 miles from north to south. Width varies from 5 to 15 miles, creating a long, narrow basin trapped between towering mountain ranges. This shape plays a crucial role in the extreme temperatures, as heat gets trapped and recycled within the valley's natural walls. Death Valley sits in the northern Mojave Desert and trends north to south, positioned between the Panamint Range to the west and the Amargosa Range to the east. This north-south orientation runs perpendicular to prevailing west to east winds, which contributes to trapping heat within the valley floor. The park started as a national monument in 1933. In 1994, The California Desert Protection Act expanded the protected area by more than 2,000 square miles and redesignated it as a national park. Today, approximately 91 to 95% of Death Valley National Park is designated wilderness. The size and elevation diversity create multiple microclimates within the park. The valley floor experiences extreme heat and aridity, but higher elevations receive cooler temperatures and more precipitation. Temperature drops 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit for every 1,000 feet of elevation gain, meaning the peaks can be 30 to 50 degrees cooler than the valley floor. Before continuing, subscribe and like to keep exploring America's most extreme places. Trust me, the next facts get even wilder. Facts 10 to 6. Death Valley contains some truly bizarre geological features. Let's start with Devil's Golf Course. This expanse of jagged salt formations covers a vast area with salt crystals jutting upward in sharp, chaotic spires that can reach 6 feet tall. The name comes from a 1934 National Park Service guidebook that noted the surface was so rough that only the devil could play golf on it. These salt formations developed over thousands of years through repeated cycles of flooding and evaporation. When rare rains flood this part of the valley, water dissolves and redistributes the salt. As water evaporates in the intense heat, salt recrystallizes, growing upward in spiky formations. The process continues slowly but constantly. Now let's talk about one of Death Valley's most famous mysteries. At Racetrack Playa, rocks weighing up to 700 pounds mysteriously move across the dry lake bed, leaving long trails behind them in the cracked mud. For decades, scientists couldn't explain how these sailing stones moved. The mystery was finally solved in 2014 when researchers observed the phenomenon firsthand. Rare winter conditions create the perfect storm for rock movement. When enough rain falls, it forms a shallow pond across the playa. Overnight, that water freezes into a thin sheet of ice. In the morning, as sun warms the ice and wind picks up, the ice sheet fractures into large floating panels. These ice panels, pushed by winds, shove against rocks embedded in the mud, pushing them across the playa surface. Death Valley also features several dune fields, with Mesquite flat sand dunes being the most accessible and famous. Located near stovepipe wells, these dunes rise about 100 feet at their highest point. The dune field includes 3 types: crescent, linear, and star-shaped formations. Remember to subscribe to keep learning extreme geography facts. Death Valley still has more surprises to reveal. Facts 5 to 1. Artist's Palette presents one of Death Valley's most colorful features. Hills on the face of the Black Mountains display stunning bands of color. Reds, yellows, greens, and purples painted naturally across the rock faces. These colors come from mineral oxidation. Iron compounds create the reds, pinks, and yellows. Decomposition of volcanic mica produces the greens. Manganese minerals generate the lavender-purple hues. This area provides evidence of one of Death Valley's most violent volcanic periods. The Artist Drive Formation consists of cemented gravel and volcanic debris, potentially 5,000 feet thick. Millions of years of chemical weathering and hydrothermal alteration caused the oxidation reactions that produced this natural palette. Nearby, Zabriskie Point offers stunning views of Badlands terrain. These eroded hills of sediment from ancient Furnace Creek Lake create waves of golden and orange-colored formations. The most recognizable feature is Manly Beacon, rising 823 feet above the Badlands. Yet life persists elsewhere. Death Valley pupfish survive in isolated spring-fed pools, adapted to water temperatures up to 116 degrees and salinity 4 times higher than the ocean. These tiny fish are remnants from Lake Manly. When the ancient lake dried up, small populations became isolated in scattered springs, where they evolved unique adaptations. More than 1,000 plant species grow in Death Valley National Park, taking advantage of different elevation zones and microclimates. Over 50 mammal species call the park home, including desert bighorn sheep, coyotes, kit foxes, and bobcats. Conclusion: Death Valley isn't just a name. It's one of Earth's most extreme environments where geology, climate, and life push the absolute limits. From 282 feet below sea level to 11,043 feet above it. From 134 degrees to 15 degrees. From 1.9 inches of rain to 150 inches of evaporation. Every measurement tells a story of extremes. This is a place where rocks move mysteriously, where ancient snails cling to life in impossibly salty water, and where a valley floor keeps sinking while mountains keep rising. Death Valley defies logic, challenges survival, and creates landscapes unlike anywhere else on our planet. Which fact shocked you most? Comment below and subscribe to keep exploring America's geographic extremes. Hit that like button if Death Valley exceeded your expectations, and share this with anyone who needs to understand just how extreme our planet can be.